Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee For Yana video. Today we're making Easter cards. I have 3 rather simple Easter card ideas to share, all created using one stamp set, Bunny Blessings from Simon Says Stamp. Here's a look at this set. It's a large 6x8 set designed to create cute spring, Easter, and friendship cards. You have 3 adorable bunnies in here, all positioned slightly differently to create various scenes. You also have several sentiments, both for Easter, spring, and friendship cards, and I really love that big scripty font used for these sentiments. There are also several smaller filler images to add to your bunnies. The bunnies can hold flowers, they can hold a carrot, or some Easter eggs. And you also have some butterflies in there, again, to build all sorts of scenes, and even a balloon for the bunny to hold and perhaps create a happy birthday card. There are 2 large birch tree stamps, long enough to be used on a slimline card, and you can also cut these tree images into smaller pieces for a smaller size card. And there's also a grass stamp, again, to build those fun spring scenes. There is a coordinating die set available, sold separately, and I love that it includes dies for every image in this stamp set. With so many different images in this set, you have multiple options. I wanted to create simple Easter cards. I'm not really big on building scenes from scratch. I do really love those type of cards with, ink blended grass and an ink blended sky and clouds and so on. But I'm more of a simple card kind of person. I like to have solid layers of color on my cards. I love to use colored cardstock and just add a little bit of stamping and coloring. All 3 of my Easter card ideas feature a colored cardstock background and some simple stamping and coloring. These really are quite easy to make and easy to mass produce should you need to make multiples. I started by stamping the images that I needed onto Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock using my Memento Tuxedo black ink. I mostly used just the 2 bunny images and also many of the filler elements such as carrots, eggs, flowers, butterflies, and grass. I enjoy coloring with Copic markers as I find them to be an easy and fast way to add color, and this is what I used for these cards. But of course, these images can be colored using any other coloring medium you prefer. I aimed for very simple coloring with minimum colors and almost no blending. The bunnies were colored mostly light brown and light gray. I used E000, E51, E31 for the light brown bunnies, and W1 with a touch of W3 for the light gray bunnies. I also used an RV00 marker to color their noses and ears. Now, some bunnies were colored in one way, others were colored in a different way, as I was trying to make sure that they looked all a little bit different. Next, to color the carrots, I used YR15 and YR18 markers, as well as YG01 and YG03. The bow and some of the eggs were colored using a B000 and B00 markers. I used the same blues to color the air bubbles one of the bunnies was blowing, but I later decided to trim the air bubbles off and alter that bunny slightly to have him or her hold a flower or a carrot, and you'll see that later on in this video. I used RV00 and RV10 to color some of the flowers and eggs. The Y11 along with the Y13 again to color some of the flowers and some of the eggs. I was aiming for soft pastel colors, and oftentimes I didn't even extend the coloring all the way but left some of the white paper showing to add the softness to the look. I used light flick style strokes when applying the color onto these images, and I avoided having harsh lines. Coordinating dies make it very easy to cut everything out, and you can see my images cut out and the first card design pre-planned. My idea for the first card is to have 4 bunnies and include an Easter sentiment in the center of my card. Now, the coloring was made pale, quite pale, intentionally so that it would stand out nicely on this light blue card background. I feel like this is a very pretty soft blue, ideal for spring, and it really did work nicely for my cards. And this is Sea Glass from Simon Says Stamp. I treated my paper with anti-static powder. This helps to keep the embossing nice and neat. Next, I inked up my image with clear embossing ink and I stamped it onto the panel. Now I'm using my Misty stamping tool to do all of the stamping in today's video. I did stamp the image several times to make sure I had good ink transfer, and then I covered the stamping with the Simon Says Stamp Detail White embossing powder. The sentiment is rather detailed, so it helps to use a finely milled powder here, and then I heat set it using my heat tool. This is how I made the sentiments for all 3 of the cards I'm sharing today. This is when I wanted to experiment with altering the image of the bunny. The air bubbles weren't really going with my card idea, so I used my scissors and carefully trimmed that part off. It's not that hard to do, just a little bit of fussy cutting, and if you're using a good pair of scissors like these scissors from Tonic Studios, that should do the trick easily. And here you can see how different my bunny now looks. I have him holding a flower, which works much better for this particular scene. I did the same for the second bunny here and gave him a carrot to hold as if he just received it from the bunny across of him. I played with various filler images to build my little Easter scene, and once I was happy with my plan, I used foam adhesive squares to foam mount the bunnies onto the card. I did position that second bunny a bit lower at first, as if he was sitting on the sentiment. That was sort of my intention, but I repositioned him later so that she was leveled with the other bunny in that row. Then I used foam adhesive and also glue to adhere all of the other filler elements for this card. I love to add little embellishments to my cards, and for these cards today, I opted to use the plastic white hearts. The white went really well with the white embossing that I had on the background, and I felt like the hearts complemented the scene without distracting from it. I used my jewel picker tool and a zig glue pen to adhere those onto the card. And here's a look at this cute Easter project. Very simple. You have some basic coloring, die cutting, and a colored cardstock background to help set the scene. My next Easter card idea for today is a little bit more advanced. I am a big fan of hot foil stamping, and I often reach for my hot foil machine to add some sort of foiled accent to my cards. I wanted to make a window card and have a bunny inside the window, and then add hot foiling around the circle opening to create a cute border. Here I have started planning my card. I cut a piece of matte silver foil. I used low-tech tape to secure a circle hot foil plate on the panel. The plate does look like it's a die, but in fact it is a plate to transfer foil. I then added the foil and used another piece of tape to secure everything in place. I didn't want to use anything too shiny, so this is why I picked matte silver. There's also a matte gold foil and some other foil colors that are more on the matte side and have a little bit less of that shiny finish like the regular gold and the regular silver foils have. I then used my Glimmer hot foil system from Spellbinders and foiled this image. Now, since this video is not about foiling, I'm not going to go in depth on how to foil. You can look up my previous videos if you'd like to learn how to add foiling to your cards. If this is new to you, it really does take your cards to the next level. I love peeling the foil and checking the results, and look at that, it foiled beautifully. Now, foiling success depends a lot on the type of paper that is used. The smoother the paper, the better. Here, for example, I also foiled the same design on light pink cardstock, and it didn't give me quite as good of a result. So just keep that in mind when you explore foiling. Paper matters a great deal. And if you don't have good results on a specific type of cardstock, try using a different paper. The next step for this card is to heat emboss a sentiment. When you combine these two techniques on one background, a hot foiling and a heat embossing technique, it matters in which order the techniques are done. Both techniques require heat, but one type of heat can mess up the results of another technique. The heat from the hot foil machine can mess up heat embossing as it can remelt the embossing powder. So best to foil first and heat emboss later, as reheating the paper with the heat tool will not do any damage to the already applied foil. Now I wanted to turn this card into a window card, and here I have a circle die that fits inside my foiled circle. I'm going to use this to cut an opening in my card. As you can see, I have already adhered my background onto an A2 white card base. I used a piece of low-tech tape to secure the die in place, and I made sure to position the tape so that it did not overlap any of the foiling. Placing a sticky tape over a foiled image will remove some of the foil, so be mindful where you place that sticky tape to tape your die in place. Next, there is a little trick you need to know to have the best die cut results. First, you need to open your card so that you won't cut into the back of the card base. And second, it is always best to use fresh cutting plates when cutting window cards, as that will reduce the number of cut marks you have on the inside of your card. Sadly, we don't always have the luxury of using fresh cutting plates, and often our cutting plates look like this. These are my old Spellbinders cutting plates. You can see that they've been well used. When you die cut a window card on a cutting plate like this, you will end up having a lot of the cut marks from the plate embedded into the paper of your card base. There is a way to avoid it. You can place a piece of thin printer paper on the plate next at your card base, and remember that it has to stay open. And then you can even add another piece of printer paper on top before adding the top cutting plate. The printer paper will take all the damage the plates will do to the paper, and your card base will come out without any cut marks. Since I have fresh plates, I'm going to use those to die cut my window opening, and let's take a look. I think it looks perfect. I don't have any cut marks on the front or on the inside of my card. And this is actually my favorite way to cut a window card to avoid having any cut marks on the inside of my card. Just remember to add that sheet or 2 sheets of thin printer paper. I foam mounted the bunny on the inside of my card inside that circle opening, and once again I used various filler elements to dress this card up. I love this stamp set for the abundance of the little pieces to create any sort of scene. I didn't film how I created the last card, as the process was identical, just the element placement was different. You can see the 3 cards on the screen now. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed these simple Easter card ideas. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us. We always enjoy seeing what you make. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.